With all of the big tech layoffs last year, now more than ever before, I think it's super important to diversify your income. Let's say worst case scenario, you do get laid off from your job. What happens to your mortgage, to your kids, to your future? It's very risky to put all of your eggs in one basket. What's up, y'all? I'm EricYu, and 3 years ago, I decided to quit my high-paying tech job to build out passive income and reach financial freedom. If you want to hear more about that story, check out this link or this video on my profile where I talk more about those details. In this video, I'll be going over my 8 different streams of income from least to most time consuming, and I'll also talk through why it's important to diversify your income. All right, let's get to it. First things first, I've got my high yield savings account with Wealthfront. So Wealthfront right now offers 5% interest on a high yield savings account. Compare that to a checking account, which gets you maybe 1% or 0.1% interest, and it is a great steal. Now, the reason why I have a savings account in the first place is I still need cash for the day-to-day expenses, but instead of putting it into a checking account, I can get more interest this way through a high yield savings account. So if I have $10,000 in there, then at the end of the year, I'll be able to get at least $500 worth of interest during that time. This isn't going to be life-changing money, but it is a very, very easy way to make your money work for you. Now, granted, inflation tends to move higher than the interest rate I'd be getting on this high yield savings account, but making some money is better than no money at all by keeping it in cash or keeping it in a checkings account. Number 2, I've got my investment and crypto account. So this would be things like my 401k, my brokerage account, and my Coinbase account. In these accounts, I have allocated probably like 10 to 15% of my total liquidity, and these are typically in things like the S&P 500 for my stock accounts, or for my 401k, it's in a Vanguard target fund. Now, crypto has been kind of the moonshot bet that I've had. So I've owned Ethereum and Bitcoin since 2018, and I'm just gonna hold on to that for as long as I can, and as long as I don't need to tap into it, I'm just gonna let it keep growing or crash to zero. That is my moonshot bet, so whatever happens with it, great. If it doesn't reach that target for me to sell, I'm just gonna keep it in there. Now, with stocks and crypto, you're not guaranteed to get returns at all, right? In some years, you might actually lose money. So it's not one of those things that you should park in there and expect to always make money. Over the long-term horizon, yes, your stocks and your hopefully crypto will be gaining in value, but don't expect it in the short term. That said, in my crypto portfolio and my stock portfolio, I do have some assets in there that yield me interest per year. So for my crypto assets, I have some stable coins that will yield me interest. And then on the stock side of things, there are some stocks that I have that pay out dividends as well. So there are ways for you to collect income from stocks and crypto, but it is not as guaranteed as parking your money in a high yield savings account. In terms of how time consuming it is, I know people that day trade and spend all their time looking at their investments. For me, it's mostly a set it and forget it kind of thing as well. All right, so let's move on to the fun part of the portfolio now, which is in real estate. Now, there's a lot of different ways that you can make money in real estate, but I'm gonna start off talking about my rental properties, especially because this is how I broke out of the corporate 9-to-5 in the first place. So with my rental portfolio, right now I've got 4 Airbnbs, 1 midterm rental, and then 4 long-term rental units. With this portfolio, we range anywhere from around 5K net. Well, we've had some negative months as well, but we normally average around 5 to 15K net per month. So this is more than enough to cover our living expenses and really pay for our lifestyle. The Airbnb side of things, it's not entirely passive, and it takes quite a bit of time to build up the business, understand how everything works, and build up the team before you can make it mostly automated and passive. But the initial time that you have to put into the research, identification, property setup, team building, system setup, pricing, it takes a while, right? I budget at least 3 to 6 months of time to onboard and learn how to do the Airbnb side of things. Now, with long-term rentals, it's a little bit easier, can be set it and forget it. You do still have things that you have to deal with if you are an individual landlord instead of hiring a property management company. But for the most part, it is a bit less work. No, not a bit. It is a lot less work than doing an Airbnb. Now with the midterm rentals, that's kind of the happy medium where it's in the middle. And the reason why I'm diversified across these 3 different types of rentals is because the Airbnb side of things is highest cash flow, but highest amount of work. Midterm rentals are slightly less cash flow, but quite a bit less work. And then long-term rentals are nearly set it and forget it for me at this point. Now, all that said, because I've already spent the time building out this portfolio, figuring out how everything works, the actual time I spend on my rental portfolio is honestly only about maybe 2 to 3 hours a week. fairly passive. It does require some work, and there's things that happen from time to time with guests that I do need to be available for, but for the most part, it's not really time consuming and it doesn't eat up most of my time, but it does yield me a pretty nice return. Oh, and on top of that, not only do I get the cash flow from the properties, I also get the appreciation. And this is one of the things I love the most about real estate. The ability to leverage, meaning the ability to put low amounts of money down on a property, but then own that asset is huge, right? Like if I put 5% down to own or occupy a property and then I rent it out later on, I am able to control that asset 20 times the value of what I put in. That's crazy, right? So your cash on cash returns are going to be bonkers. And then if the property value increases, say by 10%, relative to the 5% down that you put in, you're actually going to have a much higher cash on cash return, which I'll talk about in another video sometime as well. So not only do you get the cash flow from the rental portfolio, you also get the appreciation in the equity, which is awesome. So moving on from the rental portfolio side of things, in real estate, I also have income from the sales side. So in 2023, this was my full-time endeavor. I spent so much time building out the business with content, setting up my own meetup, posting a lot on BiggerPockets online, just networking and meeting a bunch of people all the time, responding to inquiries, lead generation through Zillow, through BiggerPockets as well. There was a lot that went into building out that real estate sales pipeline, and it was not worth it. So basically what I found is the trade-off for the amount of time that I put into real estate sales versus the return I got, definitely not worth it. I'm talking about this a little bit before some of the less time consuming things, but real estate sales was very much 40 plus hours, 50 plus hours, and you're constantly working on your business, you're constantly talking to clients. That wasn't worth it to me. I made a decent amount of money in 2023 doing real estate sales, but for my lifestyle and I think for my skill set and where I do best, it just didn't make sense for me to keep doubling down and growing out the sales business. That said, there are people out there that scale and do a lot better than I did. So they've figured out the way to make real estate sales maybe that kind of like 2-3 hour thing that I was talking about with Airbnb. But for me, it was overwhelming and I was unable to handle just all the stress and all the moving parts all the time. So real estate sales, while the income is good, highly time consuming. Moving forward, I'm only going to be doing deals for myself and friends. So I still get the commission on deals I purchase myself. And then I also get commission from helping friends out. So it's a nice little income bump. It's not something that I expect to be a majority share of my income moving forward, but it's still something that'll be pretty good overall. So the fifth income stream that I want to talk about is real estate development. So I'm going to encompass this with real estate flips and real estate new construction. I did my first new construction project last year and it was a smashing success. We ended up building about $400,000 of equity in there, and altogether the project took about 6 months, and I really think I was spending maybe like 3 hours a week on that as well. So for the amount of effort and time put in and relative to the equity created, it's a no-brainer. I'm continuing to grow in development, but one of the challenges there was getting capital constrained. So when you're trying to build out your flip or new construction business, it's very capital intensive. You need a lot of money to do so. So you either need to take really high interest loans with hard money, or you need to find ways to partner up and have more investors with you. I decided to go the latter route. So this way I don't have to put as much of my money into every deal, and I can also keep scaling and growing by working with more investors as well. So if that's you, drop a comment or shoot me a message because maybe there's an opportunity we could work together as well. So with the real estate development side of things, more time consuming than Airbnb, but way less time consuming than sales. And truthfully, I really enjoy the process of seeing something built from the ground up or rethinking a home and flipping it so that it has kind of a new vibe to it as well. Moving on from real estate development, I want to talk a little bit about the coaching community and the consulting calls that I take as well. So last year I built out a coaching community to teach people how to get their first Airbnb, and that's kind of morphed into this thing where people are investing together now, people are finding ways to do more real estate things even beyond Airbnb. But if you're interested in that, drop a comment and I'm also happy to help out there. Now with the real estate coaching side of things, what I really like about the business is it scales really nicely. So I set it up where I've got a course, I set it up where I have weekly coaching calls and then a Slack community. Now for me, the only thing that is a set time is the group coaching calls once a week, and that is 1 hour. Beyond that, responding in Slack is not that heavy of a time hit for me. So I'd say I probably spend about 2 to 3 hours a week on that as well. But what's really nice is every additional coaching client that I get in, it's not going to be extra time that I need to necessarily put into it. It's already going to be the same amount of 2 to 3 hours that I'm going to be putting in anyway. And now I just have another person that I can impact and help out. So I really like the coaching side of things. One, because it's really nice to build community and help educate people and help people break out of the corporate 9 to 5 as well. But secondly, it scales very well for my own time. So compared to doing one-off consulting calls, it's a lot better use of my time. Speaking of one-off consulting calls, that is also an area where I was making income for a while. So people can set up calls to talk about real estate investing with me. And then previously, I also still did coding interviews for people. So on interviewing.io, I would help people do mock interviews, and I was making somewhere between like 2 to 3 grand doing mock interviews there. For my real estate investing consulting calls, I was charging anywhere from $150 to $200 an hour as well. So I don't really do those one-off calls as much anymore, but from time to time I still do, and it's a nice little pay bump when I do have one of those calls. Lastly, but most importantly, the 8th income stream that I have is my fiance Wanda's W-2. I guess you could say this is a fully passive income stream for me, or maybe it's the least passive income stream for me because of the food, the cuddles, the housing. You know, I gotta think about that.
Hey, I heard that!
That is the 8th income stream, and TBD if that's passive or not. Good case in point right there. I'm gonna be in trouble later tonight. What Wanda and I have discussed is at some point she'll be able to leave her job as well, but in the meantime, she's continuing to work because having that W-2 is really helpful for real estate acquisition, and at the same time, it helps us stay diversified. So we still have someone in big tech, and then I'm focusing on the real estate side of things. So if stuff happens with real estate, our investments, our high yield savings account for whatever reason, we still have big tech. And vice versa. If something happens to big tech, then we have my real estate side of things. And I'm always looking to diversify even more. So one of the 9th income streams that I'm starting to look into is acquiring small businesses that already exist and taking over the operations. So TBD on that. I don't know how that exploration is going to turn out, but it's something pretty interesting to me too. Now, all in all, this is kind of an overview of how my income streams look. Whether or not you decide to go into all of these different domains is totally up to you. But what I truly believe is having your income spread across multiple areas just gives you a better chance against something going wrong in one of those areas, right? Like if I had lost my job at Meta and I didn't have any of this stuff, I'd be really stressed. I would have severance pay for a few months, but I'd be really stressed trying to figure out, oh shoot, how am I going to take care of my living expenses, my food, my gas, all of those things, right? When you diversify your income streams, you're basically building in a buffer for yourself, right? If something crashes and burns, you still have a buffer to survive while you figure things out. I would feel much riskier if I lost my job. So all in all, I think it's super important to develop multiple income streams. In the worst case scenario that you lose your job and you lose all your income, then at least you still have a buffer and a backup plan to cover things, right? If you want to get started in that journey, so drop a comment for any questions that you might have. Give me a subscribe if this content is interesting to you. And yeah, just reach out and let me know how I can help you out.